Welcome back. There have been a few change-ups in the high school football classes in North Dakota, and also we still aren't done talking about the phenomenal prep basketball season from this year. So for more on those topics, we will send it up to our own Jody Norstedt, who has a special guest in studio tonight. Jody?
Thanks, Kelly. I'm pleased to be joined by Chase Miller of 740 The Fan, a guy that can finally catch his breath after covering a ton of high school games on the radio for the last several months. What are you doing this time? You just kind of unwind, you sit on the couch, watch a bunch of sports, or what?
Yeah, it's a perfect time to do that with the NCAA tournament going on. The Masters are coming up. You know, I watched a little women's hoops the other night. You're seeing the Timberwolves, the Wild in action, so you kind of can catch up in that world now that high school has a little reprieve before they get to their spring sports, Jody.
Right. Well, let's get to it. We'll touch on the basketball state tournaments in a bit, but I do want to get your thoughts on some of the latest news. Last week, Shanley and Jamestown made it official that they'll be joining Class 3A in football for at least 2 years, beginning with the 2019 season. Let's start with Shanley. This is a program that has had a great amount of success in Class 2A. They won state titles in 2009, 10, and 12, making 7 Dakota Bowl appearances over the last 9 seasons when they've been at 2A. In addition, they compiled a record of 89 and 16. 89 and 16 in that time. How much do you feel that success kind of weighed into this decision to jump back up?
I think it's a lot, and you can go back to a decade ago. I'm a Fargo-Shanley graduate, and I'm maybe one of the last years where a senior class or a junior class in 2008, they were still in Class 3A, and Turtle Mountain came down, and that was about the only win that they had. And you go farther back, Jody, to the program, Kevin Feeney, and look what he built at that time. That's the last time Fargo-Shanley in Class 3A made the state semifinals. He goes to Fargo South eventually now for the Moorhead Spuds. Hammerschmidt comes in, and then there just wasn't bodies. There wasn't a lot of guys going out. So then you saw the success on the field kind of wind down a little bit. Then Steve Lockway came in, and he recruited. And what I mean by recruited, he called everybody. If you're a senior, junior, sophomore, or freshman, and you weren't playing something in the fall, you got a phone call, and he kind of revitalized that program. Now we're seeing him do that with Minnesota State Moorhead. Then you got a legendary head coach in Rod Oxendahl, who's won titles in Cavalier, and he knows what he's talking about. And then you bring, Coach Mathern in, and he was at 3A. So he knows what 3A is about with Fargo South, and I think he wants to get Fargo-Shanley back with those natural fit rivals, the West Fargos, the Fargo Norse, and not having to travel to Bismarck, St. Mary's, or Watford City for a conference game, Jody.
And he said he expects about 80 kids to be out for football next year, which is a big jump from where they were when he first came in. One thing he also mentioned is how the landscape has changed in Class 3A. Since Shanley dropped down to 2A, you have new schools in Fargo, new school in West Fargo and Cheyenne. Bismarck has Legacy, which has really helped maybe level the playing field. Do you feel it's created more balance?
Yeah, there's no Wahpeton, there's no Devils Lake that used to be in the EDC, so it's just specifically Grand Forks schools and Fargo and West Fargo schools now. So if you're a Fargo-Shanley fan, you probably like it a little bit more. It's less travel, obviously. The coaching staff doesn't have to take a bus ride for 3 hours and come back. Your longest bus trip will maybe be a Bismarck, maybe a Dickinson, but that's non-conference. So EDC games, I think, is a big part of it. Then you look out in Bismarck, I know a lot of people are probably saying, well, why doesn't St. Mary's go up? St. Mary's and Shanley are always in the title game.
Right.
Well, you look at enrollment numbers, and Shanley didn't have to move up. They opted to move up, and that's a big deal. So that's the big word. They opted to move up. Now someone out west has to move up with them, and you get 2 more teams now in Class 3A, Jody.
Yeah, and Jamestown is that other team. The Blue Jays just dropped down to 2A for last year, and then this season they really struggled their last 2 years in 3A, though. I think it was the 3-15 record combined. I know they're usually toward the bottom of the list when it comes to enrollment against those other schools. They were competitive last year, though, with St. Mary's and Shanley, both, I think, 7-point losses. They made state. It's going to be extremely tough for them. Do you think it's just a good move for Jamestown to go back up?
Yeah, it's one of those things where football in Class 3A is a numbers game.
Yep.
The farther you go down, the more you see 9-man, 1A, guys playing both sides of the football. In 2A, you might see some specialists where guys might only play wide receivers. Other might play maybe a little bit of safety. But in Class 3A, look at the West Fargo team and look at the Mina team and look how many guys specifically just played linebacker or just played offensive lineman. So the depth at 3A is the biggest thing for Shanley, for Jamestown, for any team who's moving up through that system, that they have to get that depth, because that is the most important role. Even in Class 2A, Fargo-Shanley got nicked up in the season. We had to see a backup quarterback come through. Maybe that had a little bit going up against Bismarck St. Mary's in the title game. So depth is definitely the number one concern in any level of football, but in 3A without a doubt, Jody.
And developing the offensive and defensive line is going to be certainly a challenge, something that will follow. Of course, that this move obviously will create shakeups in Class A. We'll touch on that at a later time. But the basketball season in the books. Out of the 4 state champions that were crowned, the Century Schools sweeping, Grant County winning the Class B girls, Hillsborough Central Valley repeating for the boys title. Which one was the most surprising to you?
Probably Grant County, because they kind of came out of nowhere maybe, and they had to deal with some injuries through the season. And if they didn't deal with those injuries, maybe they would have been a 2 seed or a higher seed going into that state tournament for girls basketball. But you take a look at what Grant County did. You knock off Shiloh in the Region 5 title, give the Skyhawks their only loss. You upend last year's state champ in the quarterfinals in Kindred. You take down the #1 seed in Medina Pingree Buchanan. Then you had to get by a very scrappy Killdeer team in the championship. They earned their merit. They earned their way to a state title game. Grant County, probably because not a lot of people were talking about them, the buzz, the 3-pointer by Lexi Bentz, that the buzzer to beat Kindred after Kindred came all the way back down double figures and won it, tied the game against Grant County. I think Grant County, you tip your cap to them, but maybe the most surprising because of what Bismarck Century girls and boys had. And then obviously coming back, Hillsborough Central Valley, they had a couple big-time role players, and Jack Cameron and Carson Henningsgaard were part of a state title team the year before for the Burros.
Certainly another fun year to cover winter sports here in the Red River Valley. Chase, thank you for your time. We'll touch base with you in the coming weeks.
Looking forward to it.
All right, Kelly, back to you.
All right, thanks, guys. When we come back, you already know what day it is, but can someone challenge Dakota State head men's basketball coach Matt Wilbur in Trick Shot Tuesday? See our newest challenger coming up after the break.